Chapter 1 of The Clue of the New Pin by Edgar Wallace. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Yoganand. The Clue of the New Pin. Chapter 1. The establishment of Ye Ling was just between the desert of Reed Street and the zone of that great and glittering thoroughfare which is Theatreland. The desert graduated down from the respectable, if gloomy houses where innumerable milliners, modists, and dentists had their signs before the doors, and their workrooms and clinics on divers landings, to the howling wilderness of Bennett Street, and in this particular case the description often applied so lightly is aptly and faithfully affixed, for Bennett Street howled by day and howled in a shriller key by night. Its roadway was a playground for the progeny of this prolific neighborhood, and a ring in which all manner of local blood feuds were settled by waist-bare men, while their slatternly women squealed their encouragement or vocalized their apprehensions. Ye Ling's restaurant had begun at the respectable end of the street, and he had specialized in strange Chinese dishes. Later it had crept nearer and nearer to the lights, one house after another having been acquired by the unhappy-looking Oriental, its founder. Then, with a rush, it arrived on the main street, acquired a rich but sedate fascia, a French chef, and a staff of Italian waiters under the popular Signor Macedino, most urban of Maîtres d'Hôtel, and because of gilded and visible tiles, became the Golden Roof. Beneath those tiles it was a place of rosewood panelling and soft-shaded lights. There was a gilded elevator to carry you to the first and second floors where the private dining rooms were. These had doors of plate glass, curtained diaphanously. Ye Ling thought that this was carrying respectability a little too far, but his patron was adamant on the matter. Certain rooms had no plate glass doors, but these were very discreetly apportioned. One such was never under any circumstances hired to diners, however important or impeccable they might be. It was the end room number 6, near to the service doorway, which led through a labyrinth of crooked and cross passages to the old building in Reed Street. This remained almost unchanged as it had been in the days of Ye Ling's earlier struggles. Men and women came there for Chinese dishes, and were supplied by soft-footed waiters from Hankow, which was Ye Ling's native province. The patrons of the old establishment lamented the arrival of Ye Ling's prosperity and sneered at his well-dressed customers. The well-dressed customers being, for the most part, entirely ignorant that their humble neighbors had existence, ate their expensive meals unmoved, and at certain hours danced sedately to the strains of the old original South Carolina syncopated orchestra, which Ye Ling had hired regardless of expense. He only visited the fashionable part of his property on one day of the year, the Chinese New Year, a queer little figure in a swallow-tailed coat, white-vested, white-gloved, and tightly as well as whitely collared. At other times he sat at ease midway between the desert and the zone in a poky little parlor hung about with vivid pictures which he had cut from the covers of magazines. Here in a black silk robe he pulled at his long-stemmed pipe. At 7:30 every night, except Sundays, he went to a door which opened onto the street, and was a door of one of these houses which linked the two restaurants, and here he would wait, his hand upon the knob. Sometimes the girl came first, sometimes the old man. Whichever it was, they usually passed in without a word and went up to the room number 6. With their arrival, Ye Ling went back to his parlor to smoke and write letters of great length and beauty to his son at Hankow, for Ye Ling's son was a man of great learning and precision, being both a poet and a scholar. He had been admitted a member of the Forest of Pencils, which is at least the equivalent to being elected an academician. Sometimes Ye Ling would devote himself to the matter of his new building at Shanford and dream dreams of an excellency who would be its honored master, for all things are possible in a land which makes education a test of choice for ambassadorial appointments. He never saw the two guests depart. They found their way to the door alone, and soon after 8 the room was empty. No waiter served them. The meals were placed in readiness on a small buffet, and as number 6 was veiled from the observations of the curious by a curtain which stretched across the passage, only Ye Ling knew them. On the first Monday of every month, Ye Ling went up to the room and kowtowed to his solitary occupant. The man was always alone on these occasions. On such a Monday, with a large lacquered cash-box in his hand and a fat book under his arm, Ye Ling entered the presence of the man in number 6, put down his impedimenta on the buffet, and did his reverence. "Sit down," said Jesse Trusmere, and he spoke in the sibilant dialect of the lower provinces. Ye Ling obeyed, hiding his own hands respectfully in the full sleeves of his gown. "Well?" "The profits this week have fallen, Excellency," said Yealing without apology. "The weather has been very fine, and many of our clients are out of town." He exposed his hands to open the cash box and bring out 4 packages of paper money. This he divided into 2, 3 of the packages to the right and 1 to the left. The old man took the 3 packages which were nearest to him and grunted. "The police came last night and asked to be shown over the houses," Yealing went on impressively. "They desire to see the cellars because they think always the Chinamen have smoke places in the cellars." "Hm," said Tressmere. He was thumbing the money in his hand. "This is good, Yealing." He slipped the money into a black bag which was on the floor at his feet. Yealing shook his head, thereby indicating his agreement. "Do you remember in Feesang a man who worked for me? The drinker?" The old man agreed to the appellation. "He is coming to this country," said Mr. Tressmere, chewing a toothpick. He was a hard-faced man between 60 and 70. A rusty black frock coat ill-fitted his spare form. His old-fashioned collar was frayed at the edge, and the black shoestring tie that encircled his lean throat had been so long in use that it had lost whatever rigidity it had ever possessed and hung limp in 2 tangled bunches on either side of the knot. His eyes were hard granite blue, his face ridged and scaled with callosities until it was lizard-like in its coarseness. "Yes, he is coming to this country. He will come here as soon as he finds his way about town, and that will be mighty soon, for Wellington Brown is a traveller. Yealing, this man is troublesome. I should be happy if he were sleeping on the terraces of the night." Again Yealing shook his head. "He cannot be killed here," he said. "The illustrious knows that my hands are clean." "Are you a man of wild mind?" snarled the other. "Do I kill men, or ask that they should be killed? Even on the Amur, where life is cheap, I have done no more than put a man to the torture because he stole my gold. No, this drinker must be made quiet. He smokes a pipe of pleasant experience. You have no pipe room. I would not tolerate such a thing. But you know places." "I know 100 and 100, said Yealing cheerfully for him. He accompanied his master to the door, and when it had closed upon him, he returned swiftly to his parlour and summoned a stunted man of his race. "Go after the old man and see that no harm comes to him," he said. It seemed from his tone almost as though this guardianship was novel, but in exactly the same words the shuffling Chinaman had received identical instructions every day for 6 years when the thud of the closing street door came to Yealing's keen ears. Every day except Sunday. He himself never went out after Jessie Tressmere. He had other duties which commenced at 11 and usually kept him busy until the early hours of the morning. The end of Chapter 1.